So I was watching a video where this one guy claimed to receive an alien metallic structure in the form of a skinny missile, and the guy's name is James. As a matter of fact, his YouTube channel has not a shred of channel art on it. That alone is a red flag. Rule of thumb is having a logo and a YouTube banner, and that's not to say it matters much. It's just the principle that actually matters that backs the channel's credibility. So that right there looked suspicious. But that wasn't the thing that bugged me about his video. It was things like odd-looking encryption, that looked staged, rather than looking legit, weighed on my mind. But all of this kicks off once James is standing over a box recording with his phone or camcorder, not sure which he was using, and this by the way was discussed on the YouTuber's channel Polaris, who ran a 6-hour-long podcast dedicated entirely to James's supposed alien object find. He shows more of the object. Well, he tries to show clear footage of it, and after taking this thing down into his basement tries recording more video of it. Yet the lights started mysteriously flickering uncontrollably, which was odd. Then at one point you'll notice on James's index and ring fingers these metallic-looking ring-like structures. No, that got me thinking he was somehow using that to manipulate the lights, which could be a possibility, but go figure, right? Then he stated the supposed alien metallic missile is radioactive. No, I did ask Grok AI about this as well, so I fed an image into it to analyze and it told me this. Yeah, I totally get why that whole setup rubbed you the wrong way. The symbols etched into the stainless steel cylinder do come off as amateurish and overly dramatic. Like something scribbled in a rush to mimic ancient runes or alien script, without much finesse. The asymmetry, the uneven depth, and how they blindly nod to stuff like the Seal of Solomon. Grok went on to say my gut hunch was spot on, as the entire thing was a hoax. Yeah, one can't help but to back Grok after saying that. Because most of what this James guy shows is a lot of mediocre fluff, with no pillow underneath for adequate cushioning of any sort, folks. Just hard unforgiving slab of grade A slightly spiked rock hard asphalt. Nope. This is someone saying, listen you, just lie down on the ground outside and get to sleep. Yeah, good luck with that. Because you're gonna be waking up to a series of head, back and bone aches for sure. Alright, a few other things were also off-putting, especially when James says he had touched the object with his bare hands. So I'm thinking, why in hell would you want to touch it in the first place then? No, that's not to mention the fact that he is seen here indirectly touching the object. Because if you're holding a piece of metal, while holding it against another is indirect touching, yet he remains unaffected after doing so. And at this point it's just an insult to everyone else who watched this guy waste their precious time. And what was with him driving at night while recording on a sideways TikTok-like angle? Why? Then while driving there was a claim made by not only him, but also a YouTuber named Tony, who suggests there's a very faint sound being made outside of the car, that powers the windshield wipers. Well, hate to burst both of their bubbles, but that definitely sounds like the little motors that powers the windshield wipers. No, this one took the cake. Because there's no way any military facility is going to mail you a letter. Probably the only way that would happen is if you're in the service. But if they want to contact you, they're likely to send, let's say, agents to meet up with you. But outside of that, they're not trying to come see you, nor send you a corny letter, and who's to say whether or not this was taken at a hotel or another location. I mean, the pen does have hotel spelled on it, so go figure. He then runs an radioactive test using a very old super dirty radio that crackles with AM radio wave static when putting it close to the object, which that's an ideal test to try out, as it does make sense. But how do we know whether or not James was simply playing a cassette tape with static noises? Although again his story just looks so weak-washed to the max. And who's to say that he could have simply placed a CD within the radio that's pre-recorded with electric static sounds? Just saying. Things like that can be faked. No, there's a few more things that look so BS. Okay. That ridiculous industrial factory metal tube just looks like bad chisel scribble, to be honest. Then what outright seems fake is when some random guy with a deep voice says the most goofiest line as the camera of course is faced away from that moron James. At this point it looks as if James has passed out. Okay, but who are you talking into the camera? The guy sounded as if he's James's friend. But after doing further research, it's a YouTuber that did a piece on James' bullshit story as I'm doing now. At first I thought it was James using a voiceover application to give his voice a deeper projection and pass off as a friend recording the event, but it's actually another guy. And the kicker was a blue light that appears once James starts drilling into the object. However, before he starts drilling you'll obviously notice there's a bluish light shining on the object before he even turns around to notice it. So what does that tell you? Well, it tells me this guy is not convincing when it comes down to promoting valid surrealism in a video, especially when you see what looks to be a bunch of clutter in a faraway darkened section looks outright fake. Keep in mind that we're living in the digital age and all you need is top-notch content creation applications to produce some pretty surreal videos. And the kicker was the blacking out of James's camera or camcorder, followed by a set of odd stamping footsteps that just seems to trail on and on. James' entire story lacks terror and authentic surrealism, point blank period. No, there was a master of fear and mass hysteria who knew how to incite fear and high levels of mania when it comes down to raw energetic storytelling via radio. And that was Orson Welles, who went on the radio and introduced one of the most terrifying broadcasts back in 1938 called The World of the Worlds. No, it's important to keep in mind that Orson Welles served as the voice for the 1938 radio broadcast. That wasn't the start of this cryptic alien invasion tale. That first came from H.G. Wells, who wrote the War of the Worlds novel back in 1898. Orson Welles announced the broadcast at the Mercury Theatre, which today still serves as the gold standard example how to weaponize realism plus surrealism equals true horror. The third story about the evil Zulu doll in Trilogy of Terror did it for me when I saw that at age 8. Definitely not recommended for a kid to see. It gave me nightmares for weeks on end. And that's the point. You have to bypass people's critical thinking to induce genuine panic within them. Period. Especially today in the 2020s. Because the young generation now sees Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, even Freddy as a joke. You have to mess people's heads up thoroughly. Because cringe goes hand in hand with terror. That's the key mind hack needed, because if you can't shock and incite real terror within either a viewing or listening audience, then you failed as a narrator or director. That's basically the case here with James, who crashed and burned terribly when trying to convince his YouTube followers of something that's clearly BS. And that doesn't even account for the fact we have AI content creation that can pull off some scary shit that would have you pissing yourself uncontrollably. So to sum it up, people want to be scared out of their freaking wits. They don't want to crash headfirst into a table fast asleep from outright boredom. Very few movies from the past can stir up that deeper level of psychological discomfort. One of the most loved fan cult alien terror horror flick was The Thing. And not that boring 1950s version. Yay, that's not doing it. It's gotta be the 1980s and the prequel 2011 movie incarnations of The Thing. Because both are grotesque, and they invoke serious fear and uncertainty of who's who. It's the horror flick that keeps you guessing once shit hits the fan. And the characters are suddenly thrown into the mix of insanity. That's the type of chaos that keeps you up at night, that keeps the little hairs slightly raised on the back of the neck. Because that's the type of fear that feels disturbingly real, invasive, and emotionally unsettling. Instead of fearing a masked killer walking slowly down a hallway, audiences now react more strongly to situations that feel believable, personal, or mentally disturbing. Horror creators have realized that viewers aren't just afraid of monsters anymore. Why do you think Hollywood is pretty much non-existent in 2026, folks? All of you saw how jam-packed these once full-of-life movie theaters once were. And that's not to mention the cost of a soda with some pop C, which is 1/3 way comparable to that of an EV car note payment, which hasn't gone over well with today's soon-to-be non-movie goers. So just imagine how abandoned theaters will be by 2030. Because crickets will be filling those seats at that point. But the focus today was invoking high levels of hysteria that can spike the mind's perception of fear and surrealism that commands attention. which is something James clearly wasn't able to do here in this scenario. To be honest, this entire alien invasion sudden wave of content isn't moving me much, I can honestly say. So if you liked what you heard today about understanding the varying levels of pure hysteria, and how it can be done in a surreal way to invoke the true aspects of terror within the mind, then smash that like button. Make sure to subscribe to Mind Blast Mechanics, where we dive deep into the observations that matter. Don't miss our next video, so make sure to tap that bell. Thanks for watching.